Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 9th episode of the second season of the Detours in Music podcast. My name is Laura Rupel, and today we have an excellent interview with Celeste Johnson, professor of oboe at the University of Missouri in Kansas City. I hope you enjoy.
I am Celeste Johnson, and I teach oboe at the University of Missouri, Kansas City Conservatory.
Perfect. Can you talk about your start in music?
Yeah, well, I guess it started when I was about 4, and I came home from preschool with a little piece of paper that said you can take piano or singing lessons or guitar or something.
Okay.
And so then I decided I would play the piano. I never really liked the piano. I don't know why. I should have. But I ended up then picking up the oboe when I was 10 in 5th grade because I was joining band, and I didn't know what it was. And so I wanted to play the thing that I didn't know what it was.
You started straight on oboe with a wind instrument.
I did. Yeah. Yep. So right when I started band, I started on oboe, and my stepdad was my middle school band director. And so I had some advantages to having lessons. My mom was a clarinetist and was in the Air Force Band at the time. And so I really had some good advantages to starting on the oboe with having handmade reeds and the Luray oboe and that kind of thing. And once I started the oboe, I really just couldn't, I don't know, I was really into it from the get-go and just practiced and was really, really gung-ho about it from the very beginning. So, and then that just sort of took on a life of its own.
Yeah. When did you realize that you wanted to actually pursue oboe in music?
Not until I was about a senior in high school. And I really even thought, I tried to think of other things. And I just thought, and people would say to me, well, only do this if you can't think of anything else you want to do. And I think that that is an interesting piece of advice, but I really did try to think of other things, and I couldn't think of anything else I liked more. And, you know, at the time I thought, well, this is what I've done well at in high school, so I guess I'll just give it a try. And there have been times where I've thought, oh, maybe I'm struggling and maybe I should think of something else. And, you know, for better or worse, I never could. So
I think probably if you had family in music, you had more of a well-rounded idea of what it would be, instead of just thinking it would be like a really fun, only fun, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew that there was work involved and what was behind it. And I guess the good thing was that I went into college knowing what I was signing up for, and knowing that I needed to practice a lot, and knowing that I needed to play a lot of concerts and get a lot of experience and make reeds.
Yeah.
Oh, the reeds.
When you were looking at undergraduate schools, what made your decision, I guess?
The teacher, for sure. So I went to the University of Illinois, and that was a long time ago. So it was when Nancy Ambrose King was actually teaching there. And so she was my teacher for most of my undergrad before she went to Michigan. And I found Illinois in a really funny way, because I was from Virginia, from Yorktown. And so my high school teacher was Phil Koch, who was in the Virginia Symphony. And he went to Eastman for his master's degree. And so when I was in 11th grade, he said, go take a lesson with Mr. Kilmer. So I did take a lesson with Mr. Kilmer, and Mr. Kilmer said, you should go to the University of Illinois and study with Nancy Ambrose King. And so I said, okay. If Mr. Kilmer says I should do it, then I probably should.
That was high praise from him.
Yeah, oh, exactly. Just to have his recommendation and his endorsement. And I didn't know who Nancy King was at the time. And this is like before the internet was really big. This was 1998. So it was a long time ago. And so it was not as easy to search for people or recordings of people's playing or teachers as it is now. And so it was just sort of by that connection that I had.
Yeah.
And then I eventually went to Eastman for grad school, which was just sort of like going to, like my oboe grandfather in so many ways, just going straight to the source. And so it was really those teachers, and I knew they were teaching at good programs. Of course, Eastman is amazing, and Illinois served me very well and was a very good music program. And so I felt confident in what the schools could offer, but it was really the teachers that drove that decision.
Yeah. Do you encourage, I'm sure you do, people to have the teacher be their number one, like, deciding factor?
I think it just depends on the student, you know. There's a lot of factors when considering a college. I think that's one of the most important factors.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, that's one of the most important components of what you're going to do for 4 or 2 years, depending on the degree program, or 3 if you're getting a DMA. But I do think it depends because, you know, I don't know that it's the best idea ever to go into a ton of debt to get degrees in music.
Yeah.
But I also recognize that it's important to sometimes pay for a really good education too.
Mm-hmm.
There's a balance there, and the balance is different for everybody. So I don't pretend that there's one size fits all for every single student.
Mm-hmm.
It also depends on what they want to major in. So there's multiple different kinds of degrees and career paths one can choose in music. So if someone's really interested in diehard, I must play in an orchestra, or I must be a music teacher, I really want to be a music educator, or music therapy, or music business, or arts administration, any of those things are perfectly valid and wonderful careers to have in music. And so that will tip or change the balance of what you're looking for in a school. And of course, the financial aspect is a big aspect that's very personal and very different from case to case. So it really depends on the student.
Definitely.
But that person, I always tell my students that you need to make sure you have a teacher that you can learn from, and a place where you're going to have opportunities to do what you need to do to prepare for a career in music. The career that you want. It doesn't have to be the same one I have, or that you're going to have, or that then your peers have. That you need to find a school that's a good balance of all of those factors for you.
Definitely, which is what makes it such a hard process for everybody.
It's true. It's complicated. It's not the easiest thing, and it's not black and white, and there's a lot of gray area, and some people are okay with going far from their family and some people are not. So that's another factor. It really depends on the person. I've had students come to UMKC because it's close to home, and I've had students say, well, I'm not going to UMKC because it's too close to home. So, and the opposite happens too for going to other schools or that kind of thing. So I think it's a very personal choice. And when I do have students that are looking for, if I have a high school student looking for college, or undergrads looking for grad school, we really talk for kind of a long time, over many weeks and maybe even months, about kind of what they're thinking, what's important, taking lessons, visiting the campus of schools that they're looking for. But for me, the teachers were such a main component, and that's what really drove my decisions, for sure.
Definitely. What is something you struggled with during your undergraduate degree?
Oh, that's easy. Reads.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I really worked hard at it, but I just struggled with it for a long time. I really had a hard time with that, but I feel like I can make reads now, so that's good.
That's good.
I know at this point.
Phase, so it's exciting to me to know that one day I might look back.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think that I would just work so hard at it, and then I would have like one read for 2 weeks or something that would work, and I just kind of baby that little read for like my important rehearsals or a concert or something, and then people would think that I had it all together.
Yeah.
When really in the practice room I was struggling to get low notes to respond, or high notes to play in tune, or anything to function, just to get around the reads I was working with. And just sort of figuring out what setup works for me, what kind of oboe works for me. And I was sort of dealing with all different kind of factors. And I had some of the best teachers that one could imagine, and I still struggled with that. It was just hard for me. I'm not sure why. I had all the information. It just took me a long time to synthesize it. Mm-hmm. But I do feel like now I'm better at teaching reads because I understand that.
Yeah.
So I understand how to get around these issues and how to work with people on those issues, and and kind of help them through that and say, well, if I can do this, you can do it, because I really couldn't make a read. I mean, I could make reads, but it was just a struggle for a long time. So yeah, that was kind of an interesting.
Yeah, I know somebody once compared it to like arts and crafts to me, and I was like, well, I don't like arts and crafts, so that's not, I'm not a hands-on person, and it's like, it's difficult as an oboist to have to do a non-musical thing all the time.
Yeah, it is. It is. But I sort of become a little obsessive about it now. And not in a bad way, I don't think, but I just it doesn't bother me to make reads because I'm motivated to do it, but it helps to be motivated to do it when they're working.
Yes.
When they seal and function, you're like, yay, this is the best. I love the oboe. And then when they're not working, you're thinking, what am I doing?
You're like, oh, those clarinet players have it easy.
I know, or flute. Even more so. Yeah, but they have to play a lot higher than we do. I can't even read their music very well, so.
What is some advice you have for younger players? This can be for reed making, this can be for anything like that.
Mm-hmm. I think finding a way to be efficient with taking care of the business side of playing, mm-hmm. so that you can be an artist and take the time to be more of an artist and a musician. Okay. But you have to find a way to efficiently learn your technique. You have to find a way to efficiently learn to make reads. You cannot spend your whole life making reads. It's not efficient or productive or realistic to think I could spend 7 hours a day, my whole life, making reads. Number one, you don't want to do that. Yeah. Number two, it's just not realistic that you'll have that much time once you're out of school to work on reads. So definitely taking care of the business side so that you can grow the musician and the artistic side of things. And I have a number of ways that I'll work with students on various concepts, be it reeds or fundamentals of embouchure, long tones, vibrato, working on pitch, whatever it is they're working on. And a lot of times what I'll say to students is that if they're working on a specific fundamental, I'll have them work on that fundamental for 3 minutes a day. Okay. And so then it's really not like this big, heavy task that they're taking on, like, oh my gosh, my teacher said I have to work on my vibrato and fix my vibrato. And I'm like, no. I mean, you do have to work on vibrato and you do have to work on these skills and the business side, as I call it. Okay. But if you do 3 minutes a day on that skill and you do that for a length of time, you're going to get better and see progress and see results. Yeah. And then you move on to the next thing. And so it doesn't need to take all day and all night. But if you're efficient with how you're working, you can get to the more enjoyable parts a little bit more quickly. Definitely. And those 3 minutes add up versus procrastinating and then never doing it, maybe. Yeah, exactly. I think sometimes people never do it because they think it's this huge task, but then I say, just do it 3 minutes a day and then they see progress and they're like, I'm going to do 6 minutes a day because I saw a lot of progress and I've come up with some very specific ways to work out technique because I think you just can't get away with not having technique anymore, and not that you really ever could, but I think that now we really need everyone needs to be able to play La Scala di Seta. Like you just have to. And the Strauss Concerto and whatever else is thrown on your stand. And so, and these are some of the greatest works written for the oboe. So why wouldn't you want to play them? So I've really come up with a system of helping students work through, especially as undergrads. Sometimes as grads, it kind of depends on the student, where they are, what they need to do, where they need their work done. But kind of a system of developing technique using etudes, method books, scales, and different fundamental practice that 3 minutes a day. I might keep that one with me. Yeah, I think that's great. And you just pick something, whatever you're working on, it's really handy, and then it's less overwhelming. Definitely. Hey, just popping in to do a little shout out. I get statistics on the podcast listenership, and I thought it would be cool to mention that Ireland is 4% of our downloads. So whoever's listening in Ireland, I really appreciate it, and I hope you keep listening. All right, back to the episode. You said you have had trouble with this in the past,
But now, could you ever think of something you'd be doing if you weren't a musician?
Not really, you know. I think that's why I'm still a musician. It's a challenging career, that's for sure, but it's also very rewarding, and I like the process of helping students learn music. And so I find that really exciting and fun, and I enjoy it, you know. And I just really, I can't imagine starting over in another career field. But I guess that's partially because there's not something else that's nagging at me that I would just want to do. You know, I think I've had my own struggles with just dealing with playing the oboe over the years, mostly as a student or younger oboe player. But I always came back to it, and I always came back to it with a little bit more of a clear mindset that, yeah, this is the right thing for me to be doing with my career. And it does allow enough flexibility for me, flexibility, stability, combination of the two, that with doing a lot of teaching one-on-one, you know, I'm able to make my own schedule, and I enjoy, you know, I'm motivated by the process of helping students learn to play music.
Okay.
And I think that, you know, I think a lot of young oboe players, they get into it, and I was guilty of this too. Not guilty, that's probably the wrong word, but whatever. So I was definitely getting into music because I loved it, and I had such a passion for music, and I loved going to the orchestra concerts, and it's not that I don't love music. I do. But I feel like now that motivation is completely different. I'm really motivated by the process. I really enjoy the process. And I think I got into it for the results. I got into music for the concerts. I got into music for those end results, or going to the performance and playing music for an audience, or hearing other people play concerts, or hearing recordings. And that's the final result. And over time, I kind of went, wait a minute, I spend 92% of my time in the process, not on the stage.
Yes.
Most of the time is in the process. And I had to find a way over time to be motivated by that process and enjoy and love that part of it. And I think that's what I really enjoy about teaching, is that you're like digging in with students, like, let's figure out what works for you in your process. And it might be different than mine. You know, or they might need a slightly different combination of those fundamentals that we talked about in order to, you know, find their way in music and make sure that they're a really great musician and performer in their own right, and have their own voice. I think that's really important too. But yeah, to answer your question, I really am motivated by what I do. I enjoy what I do, and I've tried on numerous occasions to think of something else, and I just can't.
The people who say that always almost feel bad. And I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure this is a good sign.
Yeah, right. I guess that is a good thing, because that's what I'm doing. So yeah, I guess it is a good thing, isn't it? Yeah, it's a good thing that I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and that nothing else seems to be better.
Yeah.
That occurs to me, or that I can even think of. Even another field, I don't know. I think it would be interesting. You know, like I've even thought like, you know, other degrees might be interesting to get, or take another class or something, but I don't know. I don't know that I want a career in anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has the focus of your career changed in your professional life?
Yes. Well, yes and no. Okay. So when I first got into undergrad, I thought I want to be in an orchestra. And I think that's what most performance majors want to do. Generally speaking, most of them think I want to be in an orchestra. And so I went to grad school because I felt like I wasn't ready to be in an orchestra. I was like, well, I need more time on this. I'm going to need a little more practicing and work. And so I might as well get a master's degree and study with Richard Kilmer, you know? So I did that, and I was taking a bunch of auditions, and I took a lot. I don't even know how many. I probably don't want to know. But I took a lot of auditions, and then, kind of long story short, I ended up getting the job at Oklahoma State University. And then it's sort of there that I found sort of my own place in music that was actually a better fit for me than playing in an orchestra. And then at OSU, I was actually playing in the Tulsa Symphony for, I think it was 11 or 12 years that I played there. Okay. And so I ended up still having that orchestra component and keeping a hand in that scene. which was amazing. Like that was a great, great thing for me to be doing. And I'm so glad I had that experience and just sort of like tearing through the rep. They played great rep in that orchestra and it was a lot of fun, great people, great musicians. And it was about an hour drive from Stillwater, where Oklahoma State is. So there was a lot of commuting back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And it was busy, but so I think that I initially thought I would be in an orchestra, but I do remember one time at the Sarasota Music Festival, another person at the festival asked me, she said, what do you want to do with this, with the oboe? And I said, well, long term, I really want to be a full-time college professor and play part-time in an orchestra.
Mm-hmm.
And I just blinked and it kind of happened.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy, but I think I was taking orchestra auditions, number one, because I thought I was supposed to,
mm-hmm.
whatever that means.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think also I really wasn't ready to get a DMA. And I really was burnt out on school by the second year of my master's degree. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't imagine taking another class as long as I lived. And so I didn't want to get a DMA, so I thought I wouldn't get a college teaching job yet without experience or a DMA, without one experience in a big, like, full-time orchestra. I had had some regional orchestra gigs in school, like I played in the Binghamton Philharmonic and the Champaign-Urbana Symphony, and had some summer festivals and all this stuff, but I didn't have a full-time orchestra career, and so I didn't think I would ever be considered. And then this job came along and it was actually just a 1-year contract.
Okay.
And so I did that for the 1 year, and then they did the tenure track search a year later and I got it. That's awesome. So that's how I ended up in Oklahoma. And it was really bizarre because they did a phone interview in July and the department chair called me and said, well, we don't have time to have you come to campus. Can you come in 3 weeks and teach here? Mm. And I had never seen the place. I just said, okay, yes, I will. You're going to pay me to teach the oboe and music appreciation and several other things. But, the other option was to wait tables in Rochester, New York. So I thought that was the better of the two.
It was, I'm sure.
Yeah.
When you look back on your life, I guess, are there detour moments that you can think of?
Oh, life is a detour. The whole thing's a detour. I think your title of your podcast is great.
Thank you.
It'd be like Detours in Life or something, or because it's all, I think life is that way whether you're in music or not. But
I do too.
Yeah, but then to point out that in music, it's especially so. I think you just never know where you're going to end up. Mm-hmm. Like I didn't think I'd be in Stillwater, Oklahoma for 12 years. Mm-hmm. I didn't know where Stillwater, Oklahoma was, but it turned out to be this really great place. And then I never thought I would end up in Kansas City teaching at UMKC. Mm-hmm. And then I just applied and then I got the job, and it was sort of this big, like, wow, this is crazy. Okay. And it's just sort of something that you have to take the bull by the horns and take advantage of the opportunities as they come, mm-hmm. And you never know where that opportunity is going to be or where that connection is coming from. And actually, you're asking about kind of what the detours are in music. And, I think that part of the reason I got the Oklahoma State job was because I was taking orchestra auditions, and I was runner-up for the Sarasota Orchestra, which was Florida West Coast Symphony at the time. They changed their name, I think. But I was runner-up in the audition, and I was devastated. And Adam Dinitz won. He's amazing. That's great. No hard feelings, Adam, if you're listening. But so I went back to Rochester and talked to Mr. Kilmer, and I said, well, I didn't win Florida West Coast Symphony. I was runner-up. And he said, well, there's a job in Stillwater, Oklahoma. They're hiring an oboe teacher. You should apply. Mm-hmm. And it was just sort of like out of that, quote, failure. It's not really a failure to not win an audition, by the way, but that's something everyone needs to hear. It's not a failure to not win an audition, but it was out of that another opportunity came along. And if I had won that audition, I think Mr. Kilmer probably would have said, congratulations, and then, you move to a place, you get a job, and then life happens. And I ended up getting married, and my son was born in Oklahoma, and now we all live in Kansas City. But it was sort of a meandering little path. And there was someone the other day that was asking where I had lived. And they asked where I was from. I said, oh, I'm from Virginia. But then I went to Illinois for college. Oh, and then I went to Rochester for grad school. Oh, and then I went to Florida for the Sarasota Opera for a season. And then I moved to Oklahoma, and then I moved to Kansas City. So if that's not a detour, I don't know what is.
I think probably every musician has the same kind of like, we move for school, and other fields that might not be as normal.
Right. Or you go out of state, or you go far away, or you go far away for a job, and people will, maybe think that you can pick where you live, and it's really hard to do that in music. People can. It's not that that's totally impossible, but I think it's a much harder road because there might be fewer opportunities wherever you're from in that region. Maybe if you're willing to live in a city kind of close to your family, that can work out, but it's just really challenging to find opportunities if you kind of plant yourself in one spot in music. But
yeah,
depends on how important that is to some people. It varies drastically.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that detour for you kind of means being presented with an unexpected opportunity?
Oh yeah, everything's been an unexpected opportunity. Everything we've talked about this last little bit, it's all unexpected. Every last bit of it, every summer festival, every competition, every acceptance into grad school, or getting a job here or at OSU or in the Tulsa Symphony, like all of these things, they're totally unexpected because music is such a challenging field. You never go to an audition thinking, I'm going to win this one. Like, yes, you're trying to. Yes, you want to. Yes, you practice and you work hard and you prepare your very, very best. And then you try to play the best audition possible. But you have to be kind of pretty tough mentally to survive it, And so I think in that regard, it's just like every opportunity I've had, I've been surprised, not in a bad way, not in an insecure way, but it's just that I think that we need a level of humility in what we do. And so if we're humble and have some level of humility, it allows us to be much more grateful for the opportunities we have rather than just expecting them to come our way because we practiced really hard. Well, guess what? The other 93 people that auditioned, they practiced really hard too. So I think that having a really great, sense of being a good colleague is so important, because you never know when you are the one that wins that audition, you want your peers and your friends and your colleagues to congratulate you and genuinely be happy for you. And so I think if you're kind of surprised by that detour, by that opportunity, if that's an exciting thing and you're humbled by it, number one, it's easier for people to be happy for you because you're not an egomaniac, but also it allows you to be grateful that there's an opportunity at all to play the oboe. I mean, I remember like being excited. I got into band at the University of Illinois as a freshman. I was like, yay, I get to play the oboe. So, and now it's really great to get to play other concerts, not during the pandemic, of course, but generally speaking, just getting to play concerts and gig and play recitals and just teach my students that I have here. It's quite amazing. And I think the moment I lose sight of that is the moment that I will feel stressed and disappointed and frustrated.
Yes.
Because there's always something to be frustrated by, right?
Exactly, yeah. Because I think it's impressive that you had the mindset after not winning that orchestra job to think of the, like, oh, it's a teaching job, to actually be excited about it instead of going, oh no, like, I'm an orchestra player. And then how different your life would be if you had only seen yourself as that one thing, maybe.
Right. I think it's important to be open-minded about what you're going to do in music because it's so hard to find any opportunities. And if you're, I've met people that are like, I am only a principal player. Now, if you already have a principal job, that's fine. Great. Be a principal player. But if you don't have a job, I think that's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're still trying to take auditions and make something work and you're limiting yourself before you start, I think that's really short-sighted. Granted, some people have strengths in like principal playing or second playing or English horn, and that's a real thing. But to limit yourself completely before you even start, or say I don't want a teaching job, or I did I did find that to be a great opportunity to get a teaching job. But I also remember people being like, "Oh, you're taking that?" Like they looked down on me for it, and they shall remain nameless. But I was like, "But I have health insurance."
Yeah. Yeah.
This is amazing. And again, something else to be really grateful for, with having a career in music and just being able to live a normal life and have health insurance and see these things as opportunities. And actually I think teaching, for me, just thinking about what you were saying earlier, teaching has really been really interesting because I do so many different things.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's more varied for me. I mean, of course, in an orchestra, you'd play lots of different rap, but for me, just my personality, I think is more well suited for teaching, and just who I am and what I want to do and how I want to spend my time.
What brought you into the job you're in today?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I was really interested in UMKC because it was in a city. It's a great school. I'd heard a lot about it before I even applied for the job. There's some really fantastic colleagues I have here, faculty and students. I also lived in a really small town, and so moving to a bigger city was really appealing. And so, yeah, I applied for the job and kind of forgot about it because I thought you just send it away and you never know what's going to happen. And then I interviewed in February 2016 and then got a job offer shortly thereafter and moved in July and started school 3 weeks later. Me in 3 weeks, I don't know. Just move and start right away. And it was quite a whirlwind of events, but it all came together. And that was, this is year 5 at UMKC already. So it's been a handful of years, and it's been a good place to teach some really wonderful students and do some good things.
Yeah. What are your current goals in either your job or field? And I know right now the goals can just be like get through the day.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's smart. Little small baby steps, right? Right now, I got a research board, University of Missouri Research Board grant to make a recording. Wow. And so I'm actually making a recording of music by women composers, and that's scheduled for January. So we're going to hope for the best. I don't know. We're just going to see. It's January 7th and 8th, I think, is the scheduled recording date. Okay. It was supposed to happen in June of 2020. But 2 of the pieces are trios, and then the other 3 are pieces for oboe and piano. And so there's a lot of collaboration happening, which is typically the case with music. And part of why we all get into music is for the collaboration. And so, yeah, I'm just sort of in a holding pattern. I'm trying to get the program booklet done so that the program notes and everything are all set up so that once we can make the recording itself, it can just go pretty quickly. Once we get the recording and editing done, and the logistics of the packaging are taken care of. So that's what I'm working on right now. Even though it's not playing, it still has to do with a project that's kind of in the works.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah. It's fun to talk about these things and kind of just talk about paths in music, because everyone's is different and yours will be different and your own unique path through music. And I think I will, maybe in parting, I will quote Mr. Kilmer, who I've talked about a lot this interview actually, but I will quote him, and he said, "It's not always the best oboists that make it, it's the ones that don't quit."
He's got a point.
Yeah, and he's a pretty brilliant guy, and I think that says a lot, that, and it's not just that you have to keep going, and problem solving and improving. But I think that's really has been meaningful to me in in times that are very challenging.
Mm.
So yeah, but I've had a lot of detours in music, so to say, and it's been kind of fun to talk through them with you. Enjoy the ride. I think if I were to tell my 22-year-old self something, I'd probably say just, work as hard as you are. It's okay. And maybe enjoy the process a little bit more. And that's something that took me a lot of time to come to myself.
That's very good advice. I think even for when there aren't really concerts, that is what a lot of us like more than the practice time. So that's a good thing to keep in mind too, to enjoy what you actually spend most of your time doing.
Yeah, and you might not just be in love with it every second of the day, but it's okay if you're just motivated by that process.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you can find something that you're motivated by, whatever it is, if it's in music or not, then you should do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a long life and it's a short life all at the same time, and if you do something you don't like and you're not motivated by, it's going to be a very long life, but it goes by really quickly if you enjoy something about the process of what you're doing and working on. And we all feel frustrated sometimes, but we also all have those good days where we think, oh, I can't imagine doing anything else ever.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
well, thank you so much for your time.
yeah, it was great to talk to you and nice to see you again too.
I, of course, loved everything that Celeste had to say, but I must say that one of the things that stuck with me the most was the quote from Mr. Kilmer, that it's not always the best oboists that make it, it's the ones that don't quit. And you can apply that if you're listening to whatever it is that you do, whether it's a different instrument or an entirely different field. Don't give up. You don't have to be the best, you just have to love it and keep going, and that'll be worth it. If you'd like to keep up with the podcast, there are multiple ways you can do so. First of all, you can go to our website, which is detoursinmusicpodcast.weebly.com. You could also subscribe to our YouTube channel, also called Detours in Music Podcast. We also have a Facebook page and Instagram account where you can like and follow us. The Detours in Music Podcast is available everywhere that you listen to podcasts, but on Apple Music podcast apps, you can subscribe and rate us. If you ever want to get in touch with me and give more direct feedback, you can email me at detoursinmusicpodcast@gmail.com. As always, thank you for listening, and I hope you catch the next one.